Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What's going on, Internet? Eric Bandholtz here, and we are back on another e-commerce conversation. Got an awesome guest, a longtime friend of mine, Mike Schwarz with RibbedTee here, and actually we're in sunny LA. I'm out doing a little bit of business conferencing up, and we're going to talk to him today about kind of like bootstrapping and the operational processes for growing a business in a very competitive space. So, Mike, why don't you take a little bit of time to introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little more about RibbedTee.
Oh, thanks, Eric, and welcome to not so sunny Southern California, but welcome to SoCal.
Yeah. So, tell me more. Like, when did you guys launch? How long have you been in it? What kind of products are you working on?
RibbedTee started, the ideation of the product came in late 2007. I had just gotten laid off of a high-tech job, had some time on my hands, was watching an entrepreneur show called The Big Idea with Donnie Deutsch. And he just said a couple of things that resonated with me, which were find a need and fill a need, and the worst that can happen is nothing. And I had this idea about a product that happened to be an undershirt that I was looking for a long time, couldn't find it. And that show basically inspired me to say, well, if I can't find it, then maybe either one, somebody's not marketing it well, or somebody's not making it at all. So I figured I'd have my hand at getting into the apparel business and create something I had been looking for.
Yeah. So you're selling like premium undershirts.
Yeah. Premium undershirts and underwear.
Underwear as well. And totally bootstrapped, right?
Totally bootstrapped. I started it with a $10,000 cash advance from a credit card.
Nice. And any business partners, or is it just you?
Wife is more of a silent partner, but it's just us.
Yeah. I can only imagine how challenging that must be. I rely on. We had an earlier episode talking about business partners, and for me, like being able to really like bounce those ideas off is really valuable. Let's talk about the operational side of things. Like this apparel has to be like one of the most competitive spaces out there, right?
Yeah.
You almost have to be like slightly crazy to want to get into apparel, right?
Pretty much everyone told me that I was crazy for getting into this industry. But I think with almost any industry, there's going to be competition. And as an entrepreneur, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be a business, you have to be not so afraid of the competition and figure out how you can differentiate yourself, how you can do things different, either with your product line or your branding or your offering or what have you. You got to be committed and confident that you're going to do that, and and just try to show your differentiator to the customers.
Yeah. Now, from an operational standpoint, like a product like this, I would imagine has pretty slim margins compared to maybe a product like Beard Brand. How are you guys able to manage cash flows and keep the ship running for 12 plus years now, but still to order what I would imagine to be like really large orders? I know nothing about your operations, right. So like I'm just trying to take a gander at it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, so our margins are probably not as good as other brands in our category because we do all of our manufacturing in the United States. In fact, we do 100% of our manufacturing of our main lines here in Los Angeles. Practically all of our lines here in Los Angeles, which means that the margins are a little bit slimmer, and so you have to be a little bit more smart about how you do your production. So the good news about how we do our production is, since we do it all locally, we don't necessarily have to do in large batches like some other people have to do, and do tens of thousands of pieces at a time for it to be economically feasible, and have all of that stuff come overseas. We can do production pretty much every single month and do things in smaller batches and just do it more frequently because everything is here local. So that helps the process as well. But the other part of the equation is obviously building out a tool set for our business, and so that we don't have to have a large number of staff members in order to to deliver the services that we offer in the product. So it's a combination of smaller batches of production and making sure we don't have to have a huge staff to do it.
Yeah, I found that as a fellow bootstrapper, staying lean is like the requirement, right? You essentially can't bootstrap if I'm sure there's people out there who disagree with me, but if you're very gravitas and you have like big visions and you order all these things, like, because every dollar that goes into inventory is a dollar less that you have to spend on marketing it.
For sure.
So it's always that balance of trying to keep that inventory very lean, so you can put that money into marketing, and then use that to justify. What is like an average turnaround time from an idea till it gets on the website ready for sale?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say probably a year is a good estimate, and generally it's because I'm really, really particular. I'm a big believer, if you're going to do something, just make sure that you do it right and you do it well, because I want to my name is really be behind all of that. So I want to make sure that I deliver the best product possible. And so that means that you're doing a bunch of iterations of stuff. So like, for example, we launched, an underwear product, and it took, we did a launch of what we call our G2 boxer briefs. And then right after our G2, we went right back into product development because I wanted to find ways that we can improve on it. And that process took about a year and about 50 different iterations of a product. So from ideation, it can be longer depending upon, if you have an idea that just takes a while to kind of look through all the different options. It could be, there's some ideas that I've been working on for, 3 years and 4 years because I haven't really found that thing that I'm really happy with. So I'm still working on the product development side, but on average about a year.
Yeah. How big's your team right now?
We have actually a pretty small staff. We have about 5 people total.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got, on the production side, we've got folks that manage, like we've got about 1.5 people that manage on the production side. We have customer service, we have shipping, and then we have supplemental staff that does some of the operational stuff, and as well as the technology, like the design and the tech.
Mm-hmm. Like the shirt blueprints. I don't know.
They're pattern making or design and things like that. We actually have a fairly large ecosystem of partners that we work with. So we have pattern makers that we work with. We have cutting services that do parts of the production process, knitting mills that actually knit all of our fabric to spec. So we have actually a fairly large ecosystem, but as far as a staff of people I've actually wanted, my personal opinion is I'd like to be a big company without being a big staff, right? I'd like to be as lean as possible. I'm not looking for necessarily the logo on the side of the building with, 50 or 100 people working for our staff. I'd rather try to do that as efficiently as possible, and then supplement the team as we need.
So how are you building out, like from an operational standpoint? Like, have you set up any kind of processes or systems that you'll follow or take through for like a product launch or like inventory management and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we have for each kind of component of the business, we have kind of, if you want to call it, different systems or processes or SOPs, standard operating procedures that we have. We definitely have a particular methodology when it comes to running production. It usually starts from the forecasting side, which is, I'm always kind of looking at what the forecast is based on past sales and trying to determine best I can about when something might be out of stock. And then kind of that process starts the production process. And then we have a very refined production process as far as all the steps that it goes through. And it's very precise as far as it. Now, when you're dealing with apparel and apparel production, there's a lot of nuance and unexpected delays here and there. So you have to take those into account, but the process that we use is exactly the same. So we actually operate the business as almost, even though we're a small team, that these are like different departments. So when production runs, production is running and kind of managing the process of getting all the products done. Then when they're delivered, there's a very particular process that it gets delivered into our warehouse and received into our warehouse. And we're actually a small staff doing it all, but we're doing it on purpose so that at any given point we can scale, and we've got the system and process in place.
Yeah. How long did it take you to build that process, the SOPs for that?
I mean, honestly, it's been an evolution over the last 10 years. I would say that each time, I think the one main thing I've always held true to is that if I run into a process problem, I try to, you don't necessarily anticipate process problems. They kind of occur when they occur. And then, if you're aware enough, you go, okay, how do I prevent this from occurring in the future? So, and we have those little nuances happening all the time. Like, for example, with a production delivery handoff, a big part of that is reconciling all of the counts to make sure that what we said we were going to produce, we either produced or accounted for. So like every time we run into a potential discrepancy, we say, okay, why is this discrepancy happen? Then how do we put in a process or a step to prevent it in the future? So I think that's kind of the key thing, is you don't necessarily going to anticipate it, but if you can stop for a minute, look at the problem, and then try to figure out how to put in a step or a process or a check to prevent that from happening in the future. I think that's a key thing to do, no matter what your size is. Yeah.
I mean, we found that, if it happens once, right, it may not be something that you need to solve because it may never happen again. But if it's something that looks like it could happen again and again and again, then it's really important to put that energy up front to...
Yeah, my rule of thumb is usually twice.
Okay.
If something happens twice. Sometimes if something happens once and I feel based on the nature of it, it will probably happen again, then I'll put a process in place. But 2 is definitely the rule of thumb. If it happens twice, I usually will put something in place so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. What kind of software or tools are you using to kind of manage all these SOPs?
All of our SOPs live in, so we use a ticket system called Freshdesk is one of our main tools. And so basically all communication of everything goes into Freshdesk. It becomes, whether it starts off as an email or a voicemail from a customer or what have you, everything kind of starts wherever it starts. It actually ends up as a ticket inside of our Freshdesk system. And there's a lot of different ticket systems. I mean, we use Teamwork on another project that I've got, and there's a bunch of different ones, LA Desk and those. We use Freshdesk. So all of our SOPs, so we've got kind of 2 categories. We've got our SOPs are solution docs, and all of those live inside of Freshdesk as a solution doc. And then we also have canned responses that are basically for all the inquiries that come in, what are the possible responses that we have? So between the solution docs and the canned responses makes up a large part of our standard operating procedures and how we handle anything.
When you add new team members or you have turnover of your team members, I would imagine maybe like walk me through like that training process and how quickly you're able to get people up because of these processes.
Yeah, and actually one of my goals has been to be able to bring on a team member and have them be able to kind of read through, the information and be able to start literally immediately after they complete that. So usually what happens is when a new person comes on board, whether it's a customer service person or a shipping person, the charter is to go through all of our solution docs, whether they be for customer service or for shipping and operations. So a customer service person, they read everything, and a shipping person will read both customer service and shipping operations. So they'll go through all of the shipping docs or all of the solution docs. And also, we also give them a mechanism to read through all of the canned responses. So like to see how we do the canned responses, what they say, and things like that. So usually we give new staff a couple of days to go through all those. And usually at the conclusion of those 2 days, they're equipped to start doing their job. And then because of the tool set that we have, namely obviously one being Freshdesk, it gives us a very good medium to to have internal discussions and dialogue regarding anything that happens. So if X happens, we can actually have an internal discussion using the tool, and then we allow the team member can then take it from there. So it's basically like I call them either learning moments or teaching moments. And if we see something like a new use case pop up, we'll go, okay, this is a learning moment or teaching moment, and then we just use that tool to communicate that information to them.
Cool. Yeah, failing forward.
Fix fast. That's what I always say fix fast. Failure is inevitable, but as long as you can fix it fast, then that's okay.
Yeah, and fail in a way that doesn't put the business out of business, or put the company out of business.
Exactly.
Is another big one. So one of the things that I see in like a lot of the quote unquote experts or business books or whatever talk about is having, kind of a visionary and an integrator. And the integrator is kind of the person who runs the operational side of things. And then the visionary is the person who's setting the direction of the company and the brand. What are your roles? Are you serving both those roles currently, or do you work with an integrator? Are you on the visionary side, or are you the integrator and there's a visionary? I'm
serving both right now. In my perfect world, I would get out of the integrator role. It's kind of a necessary evil at this point. Just at our stage in growth and cash flow and profitability and things like that. So we're self-funded. We don't have a bunch of extra capital. So bringing on the right strategic staff to help in some of those things isn't right in the cards right now for us. But I'm playing both roles. But I have the other part of the equation is I really want to equip the staff that we do have to be able to manage things so that I don't have to do all of the operational or integration tasks. I can offload those to the staff.
Yeah, I've got to imagine I think every entrepreneur, especially every bootstrapped entrepreneur, is going to essentially be in those roles, like to wear both hats. Do you literally? Probably not, but this is a dumb question. But I've always thought I have one hat where it's okay, here's my founder hat, and then here's one hat where it's here's my operational hat, here's my designer hat, and because I always wonder does my team understand where I'm coming from? Because if they think I'm coming from here's the owner, the visionary or whatever talking about this versus a coworker role where I'm still designing things. Have you found that your team is able to kind of distinguish your different directives based on your kind of own emotional moods? And
I think so. I probably, while I'm interacting with the staff directly, I probably am playing the integrator role more, the operations kind of the COO type of role more often. If you want to call it the visionary hat, is usually I usually put on when I'm away from the office. So for example, I might go to the gym, spend an hour and a half at the gym, and that's kind of where I just unplug from everything, listen to some music, and I think that's where I kind of get some inspiration for ideas, and that's probably where I might put my visionary hat on more often than I do when I'm in the thick of it, because sometimes when I'm at the office or in the thick of it, it's kind of hard to kind of separate the two. Yeah.
Do you ever find it for me personally, I'm very lousy at operational things. I'm very lousy at tasks. So it always amazes me, people who can build systems and processes, because I don't have that talent. And if left to my own devices, the kind of the visionary creeps in and it's oh, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this, let's do that. Right. Do you see any of that creeping in, or are you pretty good at
I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing it. I come from a technology background. I was a developer when I was in high school, and kind of grew up on the path of product development and things like that. So I think I tend to probably think and lean more towards analytical, which will be operationally well, and then I also have the visionary time. I just think when I'm in the mix of it all, my hat is a little bit more clearly let's see what's going on with the operations, and let's figure out how do we yield the most out of what we've got on the operational side.
Yeah, I think this next question is more from like an extension of our own growing pains, but like let's talk a little more about like inventory management.
Mm-hmm.
And you touched on it a little bit or briefly or a little bit earlier. How do you figure out how to keep things in stock? And like,
we have now at our stage in development, we have probably 350 plus different SKUs, because we have, we might have similar items. We have them in different colors, we have them in different styles, and so on. So the number of variations is quite a bit. Not nearly as much as some other companies, but it's quite a bit for a small company. One of the main tools that I developed early on was basically a forecasting tool, and it's I would call it a rudimentary forecasting tool based on sales of specific amounts of past time, but it's a lot better than not having anything, and it's probably not as great as other more intelligent ways. But generally speaking, inventory management, if you have an idea on a per SKU level what the performance of that has been over the last 30 days shot or 60 days shot or 180 days shot or last year shot, you can get an idea of when that item will likely be out of stock. And the key thing to do is obviously stay on top of it, because it's really easy not to look at inventory for a while, and all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I'm out of inventory, and then you got to cycle through it pretty fast.
Yeah. So is that something that you guys are looking at daily, or?
We probably look at it we should look at it more, because there are times that we have more demand than we anticipated, if there's a media mention we didn't expect or something like that. So there are times. So in a perfect world, really should start looking at it about every week. Right now, we're probably looking at every 2 or 3 weeks. And sometimes that can be a little bit long for certain items. Like the challenge with our business is certain SKUs go a lot faster than others, based
like
on
every business, right?
Yeah. Based on, size and color preference of this stuff. So we have to be really on top of those, because we might have, for example, certain sizes and colors that sell, 7 times faster than a different one. So we have to be really careful about those and make sure those don't go out of stock that often.
Yeah. And to circle back, you mentioned you developed your own inventory tracker.
Yeah.
How did you build that out?
I'm really just trying to do common sense, right? I really wanted to figure out what was the easiest way to determine somewhat predictably when something might be out. And so our e-commerce system that we have didn't have a forecasting tool built into it, and I knew that was the place that we needed to build it. But the good news, the platform that we have allows you to extend it. And so really I just kind of had the idea of how do I predict based on past sales? And I started working with some of our developers to figure out how we needed to code it to look at, how do we need to track the sales on a SKU level, and then how do we determine based on pockets of time when something might be out of stock based on the current inventory. So really it was just me sitting down and trying to get logical as figure out how to predict it.
Yeah. So you essentially built like a website then that kind of does it. You plug in the information.
Or
is it like an Excel spreadsheet?
No, it's actually within our e-commerce system.
Oh, cool.
You're probably familiar, like within Shopify and other e-commerce, you have a back end, you have an admin, and that's where you configure all your products and configure all your inventory. So what we did is basically we developed a module that extended into our e-commerce platform, so I could see it firsthand. So I don't ever have to download data. I don't have to do any of that. I just basically will log into my account, go into the admin, go into the inventory section, and then go to the forecast module that we did. And then that kind of gives me visibility into sales per day based on 30 days, 60 days, 180 days, and it gives me different snapshots. And then I can look at, based on current inventory levels, when, based on that amount of sales, when that particular item might be out of stock.
Now, are you guys selling on any other channels, or is all RibbedTee.com?
RibbedTee.com is the primary channel, but we also do some sales on Amazon.
Okay. How does that affect your inventory management?
We have a process to bring in the orders from Amazon into our system. So our e-commerce system, what I call is the source of truth. So all of the data kind of goes into that related to sales. So we have a mechanism and method to bring all the Amazon sales into that, so that when we're looking at the forecasting, it's relative to what's being sold on RibbedTee.com and Amazon.com.
Cool. And let's talk about the cash flow management as well. Like, how important is it to like negotiate terms, or do you have any kind of processes in regards to how you manage the cash flow aspects with your vendors and paying for inventory and then trying to delay paying for that as you bring in revenue?
Yeah, I mean, we generally speaking, especially in the apparel business, everyone wants to get paid before, upon delivery. So that means if I'm
like 100%.
Generally speaking, upon delivery, not necessarily upon order, because those are two different things. So, for example, if I'm producing 10,000 yards or 15,000 yards of fabric, I don't necessarily have to pay when I order. I usually pay when I get it, and so the fabric time to produce can vary. Right. So, but on certain things that are the higher cost items, I have worked with some of our vendors to offer shorter terms, but they're not really long. It's not long term.
10 days or 15 days. Or something.
It's usually like a net. Probably the max one is usually net 15, and then our fabric partners are a little bit more lenient with the payout, but it's generally not much more than that after we get the delivery. But that helps out somewhat, but it doesn't help out everything, because if I'm getting a batch of inventory, that inventory, depending on how much we ordered, we might that might be inventory that's going to sell over a 90-day or 180-day period. So I'm paying for all that up front. So that you have to be careful about cash flow in those regards. But so that's when I have to put my sales hat on and make sure that we're getting the right amount of volume of traffic in to make sure that we don't run into things that strap us too much.
Yeah, and that was kind of going to be my second question. You plan on keeping inventory for 3 to 6 months is essentially what you aim for, or quicker turn? Or
I mean, in my perfect world, I'd like to have like a 3-month turnaround. I mean, our turnaround of production is generally about 6 weeks, from the time that because we stock so we manufacture our fabric in advance, and then we stock our fabric, and then that's kind of when we start the production. So our production process from when we do a production order to the time we get it is usually about 6 weeks, depending upon if there's any delays. So I think 3 months for me would be the right amount of time because of the 6-week window that we can run off stuff.
Cool. Yeah, it's it's like really juggling a lot of balls in the air when it.
Yeah. And you can never predict on the production side of it. It's not like I'm placing an order and this stuff is in stock somewhere and I just have to receive it. I mean, we're cutting fabric, and we have humans. We have a lot of humans involved in the process, and we have a lot of really great partners here in Los Angeles. But we're all subject to things that happen, delays that are unexpected, and so we have to we just have to try to manage that as best we can.
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge as kind of like an extrovert is like the grand achievement of a great operational organization is you just simply have stuff in stock, right? Like, and for as short as time as possible, but always in stock. And I think, like if you just see stuff in stock, like, you're doing a good job. Like,
right. Well, the other part of the equation is like, for a long time I was really worried about running out of stock. But the other thing that I learned, and it wasn't something that I would have predicted, but if I give, if a customer comes, obviously we don't want to disappoint customers when they're coming to our site and ordering, so we want to have stock available for them. But if there's a case when we don't have stock, we want to make sure their experience as best they can. So we have, I think, a pretty nice waiting list experience where people realize that the thing that they wanted is popular. And it's as such, it went out of stock earlier than we anticipated, but we give them a great mechanism for a waiting list. And then it's almost like what we hear a lot is we communicate when they go on the waiting list, we let them know they're on the waiting list. So we acknowledge that and thank you. And then we tell them when we anticipate having stock in. And so we have all of this in our system saying when we anticipate having the new stock in. So we reply right when they do that, let them know when we anticipate having it in. And then when we know we get inventory deliveries, we have a very clear way where we can notify all the people on the waiting list for something that has just come in. And so what we found is customers are happy that they're getting that email notification. They just liked that experience because we communicated throughout the entire way. We apologized that it was out of stock. We acknowledged when we think something's going to be in stock. If we think there's going to be a notable delay, we let them know. And then when it's in, we let them know. And that gives, I think, our customers a pretty good customer experience, even though the product was out of stock.
Yeah. Well, I think I could probably talk about operational stuff and really like pick your brain for another couple hours, but we've got to wrap it up here. Okay. Tell our audience where to find you, where to find your company, all the links. Yeah,
the single link you can go to find us is RibbedTee.com. That's RibbedTee.com. RibbedTee.com.
Yeah, and go get some high-end
undershirts and underwear.
You're going to be looking and feeling great, right?
Made in the USA, too.
Made right here in sunny LA.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, this has been another e-commerce Conversations. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed it and learned something new. Thanks, Mike, for being on the show.
Thanks, Eric.
Cheers. And keep on growing.